A Very Long English Story, Chapter 1, The Keeper of the Timeless Secret, the Watch Shop and the End of Waiting. The air felt almost suspended in time outside the little watch shop. It was a rainy night in the village, as was often the case, and a soft glow of orange filtered through the shop's dusty windows, marking the evening sky, saying goodbye to the day. The shop itself was nestled in a quiet corner of the village, a quaint facade of weathered bricks and a faded sign swaying gently above the door. It was well known that this watch shop, which whispered tales from different eras, stood only 2 doors down and to the left of the famous bookshop of Sleep. Inside this peculiar sanctuary resided a man dedicated to time itself. He had lived so long that he had forgotten precisely how old he was, and yet, he had neither married nor had children. There was a profound reason for this solitary life. The man was the keeper of one of the universe's great secrets. Tonight, however, the secrecy was about to end. He looked up, his bright eyes fixed on you, filled with genuine curiosity and a kind invitation in his gaze, a beckoning into his timeless world. As he gestured for you to come closer, the realization dawned: you were not merely a visitor to this cluttered domain of tools and timepieces, you were about to become a vital part of its ancient story. "You are safe here," the old man said, his voice measured and solemn, carrying the weight of centuries. "I'm going to show you a part of existence you probably never thought possible. You, my friend, are the next timekeeper. And so, I must reveal to you the secret that I have kept for many centuries. Time travel is possible, and tonight I will show you how to do it." His words hung heavy in the air, weighted with the promise of a long untold secret. His eyes, bright with a mix of excitement and solemnity, beckoned you closer to his workbench. There, amidst a satisfying clutter of precision tools and incomplete timepieces, sat a clock unlike any other. It was not particularly large or decorated with ornate carvings, yet it held an undeniable aura of mystery and power that drew you in completely. This adventure of a lifetime, woven irrevocably into the very fabric of time itself, now awaited the timekeeper. The first journey through time. "Shall we go on a little journey?" the old man asked, a smile spreading across his face. "Let me take you to meet an old friend of mine." The anticipation building in the quiet shop was palpable as he prepared the timepiece for your first ever journey through time. With a gentle, yet surprisingly firm hand, he began to wind the clock, the gears inside clicking softly and meticulously. The world around you began to change instantly. The air in the small room started to shimmer, and the solid walls of the watch shop blurred into indistinct shapes and flowing colors. In a moment that felt both instantaneous and eternal, a sensation unlike anything you had ever experienced, you were transported. The journey ended, and as you regained your bearings, the sights, sounds, and smells of a historic city enveloped you. You were no longer standing in the quiet village. You found yourself on the bustling streets of Rene's Florence in the beautiful country of Italy. You had moved back in time some 500 years. The air was vibrant, filled with the loud chatter of townsfolk and the distant, rhythmic clinking of artisan tools. You understood that this colossal new responsibility was not one you had to face alone. The old man promised to provide guidance and unwavering support, reminding you that he had cultivated many friends throughout history, remarkable individuals, such as Da Vinci, each one possessing their own distinct stories and wisdom to share. Your singular task, as the new keeper of time, would be to bring that collective wisdom back to our present time. The future, the old man explained, was an open book, its pages yet to be written, and you were now a vital part of that unfolding story. With these words, the old man bid you good night, leaving you to the comfort and profound peace of a small, quiet room in the little village, as the rain continued to fall softly outside. Drifting off to sleep, you felt content in the knowledge that you were the new keeper of time, safeguarded not only by the wisdom of the old man but by the timeless legacy of those historical figures you were yet to meet. Entering the magical bookshop of sleep. In the warm embrace of this newfound sleep, you dreamt immediately of times past and times yet to come. Your consciousness settled into a familiar, deeply comforting reality, the little bookshop. This little bookshop was situated in the same little village, nestled within a little area of a little region of a little country. It was run by a little woman who, like almost everyone else in the village, was completely obsessed with stories. She loved anything and everything to do with narratives, histories, and tales. The little woman had lived in the little village all her life. She had opened her bookshop when she was very little, and now she was very, very old. People of all ages would frequent the bookshop. Visitors often entered feeling a little stressed or completely out of sorts, but after spending just a short time soaking up the deeply calming and serene atmosphere of the place, they would inevitably feel profoundly tranquil and peaceful. The little bookshop had a unique schedule that catered perfectly to quiet reflection and rest. It was only open from 8 p.m. in the evening until 8 a.m. in the morning. And, if one desired, one could always sleep the entire night right there inside the bookshop. This was possible because the shop contained 17 deeply comfortable beds, all situated in different, imaginative places. Some were perched high atop bookshelves, offering a unique literary vantage point. Others were nestled in the conservatory, allowing sleepers to gaze up directly at the stars. Some were tucked away in the serene garden, enjoying the fresh night air. There were even hammocks that swung high above the vast collection of books. Oh, and of course, some of the beds were found within the colossal, giant tree that grew miraculously inside the bookshop itself. When one said that the bookshop was little, they meant it only looked small from the front. But step inside, and you found it was basically another world, a magical world that contained pretty much all of the best books that had ever been written. People would arrive to get their bedtime books and then either stay the night in one of the comfortable beds or return quietly to their little houses in the little village. Each villager knew that the purpose of the place was to help them find the perfect book for their nightly rest. The little old woman, content with the knowledge that her beloved bookshop was taking excellent care of her visitors, settled into a comfortable rocking chair near the entrance. She decided to select a book herself for the night, enjoying a moment of solace. The rain continued its gentle, rhythmic patter outside, contributing to the perfect kind of night for deep, restorative sleep. The magical atmosphere of the place was only enhanced by the new system installed in the bookshop, where, fitting right in with a dreamlike atmosphere, the shop itself would magically select the perfect reading material for the villagers and visitors. Thomas and the Magnificent Tree. We meet Thomas, a kind gentleman who has been coming to the bookshop for years. Tonight, he was exceptionally tired, his bones weary from a long day. The magical system sensed his mood and guided him toward a bed that was nestled snugly among the branches of the magnificent tree inside the shop. The bed was prepared with plush pillows and draped with luxurious emerald green fabric, making it appear both inviting and majestic. A nearby bookshelf rotated slowly and silently, presenting Thomas with a very special book, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, that great book of life lessons. He opened the book, but it began, quite magically, to read itself to him. The words drifted softly on the quiet air, a profound reassurance. Constantly regard the universe as one living being having one substance and one soul, and observe how all things have reference to one perception, the perception of this one living being, and how all things act with one movement, and how all things are the cooperating causes of all things that exist. The book then turned, as if by its own will, to another section and began to read once more, offering counsel steeped in ancient Roman wisdom. Remember how long you've been putting this off, how many extensions the gods gave you and you didn't use them. At some point you have to recognize what world it is that you belong to, what power rules it and from what source you spring. And then it moved to a final page of encouragement. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. Then tell yourself that it is within your power to live this day in accord with nature, speaking and acting with integrity, embracing whatever comes your way. Lying back in his luxurious bed, Thomas listened intently. He felt deeply comforted by the magnificent tree that cradled him. He felt strongly that he was supposed to hear those very words tonight, words that echoed through millennia, connecting him to a man who lived thousands of years ago. It served as a gentle reminder that no matter when or where we are born, we are all just human, all just doing our best on this planet. He sighed contently and closed his eyes, ready to let the gentle power of the book and the tree guide him deeper into the land of dreams. Chapter 2: The Infinite Pages of the Village of Sleep, Literary Slumbers and Shared Dreams. The magic of the bookshop of sleep continued to unfold in the deepest part of your consciousness. The air, thick with the scent of aged paper and comforting warmth, was a symphony of soft sounds, the gentle ticking of unseen clocks filtering up from the watch shop below, the rhythmic patter of rain outside, and the faint, peaceful breathing of the villagers. All these elements combined into a powerful atmosphere for slumber. Tonight, the little old woman who ran the shop was actually present, settled in her comfortable chair near the entrance, unlike some nights when the bookshop operated solely on its own ancient magic. She watched with twinkling eyes as new arrivals found their designated places, trusting the bookshop's new, magical system to select the perfect reading material for each soul. This system, which picked books tailored to the mood and needs of the visitors, fitted seamlessly with the dreamlike quality of the entire place. John, a man new to the village, was one of the latest arrivals. He had walked many days just to find this little sanctuary. The shop's intelligence, sensing his long journey and perhaps the romantic melancholy that often accompanies deep travel, had provided him with a copy of Wuthering Heights. As he sat there, deeply engrossed, he could hear the words of the book echoing clearly in his mind, feeling as if the author spoke directly to his condition. I lingered around them under that benign sky, watched the moths fluttering among the heath and harebells, listened to the soft wind breathing through the grass, and wondered how anyone could ever imagine unquiet slumbers for the sleepers in that quiet earth. John was thoroughly enthralled by the beautiful prose. The story continued, drawing him into its desolate, yet captivating, landscape. In all England I do not believe that I could have fixed on a situation so completely removed from the stir of society, the perfect misanthropist's heaven. He imagined himself settling into the isolation, hearing the inner voice declare, "Mr. Heathcliff and I are such a suitable pair to divide the desolation between us." A capital fellow he reflected. He almost felt his heart warm towards the dark, brooding figure when he pictured his black eyes withdrawing so suspiciously under their brows as the character Lockwood rode up, and when his fingers sheltered themselves with a jealous resolution still further in his waistcoat as his name was announced. John could almost feel the raw wind of the Yorkshire moors on his skin and the rough texture of the old stone houses, their words spoken in hushed whispers that seamlessly blended with the rhythmic patter of the rain outside. Meanwhile, nestled in one of the hammocks that swung gently from the branches of the giant tree that grew inside the bookshop, lay Mary, a young and deeply thoughtful woman. The magical system had chosen the secret garden for her, a book she joyfully absorbed. Her eyes wandered over each word, and she found herself absorbed in the narrative's soothing, natural imagery. A passage resonated deeply with her current state of mind. One of the strange things about living in the world is that it is only now and then one is quite sure one is going to live forever and ever and ever. One knows it sometimes when one gets up at the tender solemn dawn time and goes out and stands alone and throws one's head back and feels the day is coming and wonders what it will be, and then one is quite sure. A return to childhood innocence. In a cozy corner, illuminated by the warm glow of a small fireplace, a small group of friends had gathered. They were regulars, often spending the night together in the shop, discussing their chosen books quietly and sharing their dreams. Tonight, the atmosphere was enhanced by the warm herbal tea they were sipping, comfortable in the plush chairs, surrounded by the gentle crackle of the fire and the rhythmic sound of the rain. The magical system, sensing their need for shared comfort and nostalgia, had selected a children's book for them to read aloud, Peter Pan. As one of the group opened the book, it began to speak, "All children, except one, grow up." They soon know that they will grow up, and the way Wendy knew was this: one day, when she was 2 years old, she was playing in a garden and she plucked another flower and ran with it to her mother. I suppose she must have looked rather delightful, for Mrs. Darling put her hand to her heart and cried, "Oh, why can't you remain like this forever?" This simple event was all that passed between them on the subject, but henceforth Wendy knew that she must grow up, knowing that you always know after you are 2. 2 is the beginning of the end. The book continued to describe the Darling household, located at number 14 on their street. Until Wendy arrived, her mother was the chief figure, a lovely lady with a romantic mind and such a sweet, mocking mouth. Her romantic mind was compared to the tiny boxes, one within the other, that came from the puzzling East. However many you discover, there is always one more. Her sweet mocking mouth had one elusive kiss on it that Wendy could never get, though there it was, perfectly conspicuous in the right-hand corner. As the group listened, they were all transported back to their own individual childhoods. In that shared moment of return and memory, there was a deep comfort that came with hearing such a wonderful, familiar tale. They felt profoundly safe, completely at peace, enveloped by the magic and security of the bookshop of sleep. The little old woman, still watching her cherished villagers and guests, settled deeper into her comfortable rocking chair. Content with the knowledge that her beloved bookshop was taking expert care of her visitors, she selected a book for herself, a volume of poetry by the American poet Robert Frost. The book opened by itself to a particular poem, stopping by woods on a snowy evening, and began to read. "Whose woods these are I think I know. His house is in the village though, he will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near between the woods and frozen lake the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bell a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound's the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." The little woman thoroughly enjoyed the poem, feeling grateful because, unlike the narrator of the poem, she had nowhere to go before she slept. Her eyes twinkled as she watched the villagers, each one finding solace and comfort in the world she had created. She felt a profound connection with each of them, knowing that the books they read and the dreams they had were interwoven within the great, shared story of this magical village. The captain's chamber and the call of the sea. As the focus of the dream shifted, the enveloping rain and the quiet of the bookshop began to fade, replaced by the persistent, creaking movement of wood and the faint smell of salt and old charts. The setting transformed instantly, placing you inside a ship's meticulously organized and beautifully decorated cabin. The room was adorned with detailed carvings of rich wood. A fine window at the far end of the cabin looked out onto the vast, open ocean. Maps were scattered across a large oak table, and the walls were covered with an array of navigational tools, sextants, quadrants, and compasses that had guided the captain through many treacherous voyages. It was darker in here than the bookshop, and the soft glow from a single, small lantern cast a warm, inviting light, offering a sense of sanctuary amidst the vastness of the sea. You found yourself in the presence of the captain. He began to speak, his voice carrying the immense weight of years spent navigating the unknown. Dressed in a coat that had weathered many a storm, the man's eyes reflected a deep and profound understanding of the world's complexities. The sea, he stated simply, is both our greatest challenge and our most profound teacher. He explained that the sea teaches us lessons about our limitations, our potential, and the inexhaustible capacity of the human spirit for curiosity and exploration. Every journey, he continued, is fundamentally a leap into the unknown. But we humans possess an unyielding desire to see beyond the next wave, beyond the horizon. We are driven by an innate, powerful urge to discover. He gestured to the extensive collection of maps spread across his table, explaining that human explorations are not just about discovering new physical lands, but ultimately about uncovering new possibilities within ourselves. Lying back on a simple, comfortable bunk in the cabin, you felt completely relaxed, completely safe, and entirely welcome. You gazed up, not at a ceiling, but through the ship's overhead lantern to the expansive, dark night sky. You noticed the brilliant, hazy band of the Milky Way, a vast river of stars above. You heard the voice of a young sailor discussing navigation, explaining that the stars were much more than mere lights, they were tools and markers that helped travelers traverse the immense, shifting sea. Here, surrounded by the wisdom of the sea and the tools of exploration, you understood that all human endeavor, whether navigating time, traversing physical oceans, or delving into the depths of a story, was part of one magnificent, connected journey. Chapter 3: The Artifacts of Time and the Celestial Map. Nathaniel's Sanctuary. As the soft lapping of the waves and the rhythmic creaking of the tall ship faded, the metallic warmth of the captain's compass cooled in your hand. The vast, starry ocean dissolved into a shimmer of colors, and suddenly, you were back. You stood outside Nathaniel's antique store, feeling the gentle rain on your face in the little village. The store, as was well known, was located third on the right after the plant store, and only very special people were ever permitted to visit at night time. Nathaniel, a kind, slim, elderly man with sparkling bright blue eyes, stood ready to receive you. He had been expecting your arrival, having been informed of your mission as the new keeper of time. As you stepped through the ornate wood entrance, the quiet atmosphere of the shop enveloped you. The air was thick with wonderful, complex smells, old paper, polished wood, the dry scent of ancient scrolls, and the refreshing hint of lavender. Importantly, the smells all shared one thing in common: they smelled of different times in history. Nathaniel smiled and handed you a cup of lavender tea, warm and soothing. He explained that the artifacts in his shop were much more than mere objects, they were tools, friends of humanity, and extensions of our inner worlds. They had endured through time because they were crafted with quality, care, and love. They were witnesses to human endeavor across the ages, offering insights into curiosity and courage. He himself had run the store for many, many years, just as his father had before him, and his father before him. You began to look around, perhaps touching an ancient African artifact displayed prominently on a dusty shelf. It was intricately carved, capturing the essence of African artistry and cultural expression. As you closed your eyes and felt the object's weight and texture, a sense of deep tradition enveloped you. Suddenly, the environment dissolved, and you found yourself transported again. You were surrounded by vibrant landscapes as the sun set over the African savanna. Giraffes stretched their long necks toward the high branches, and a gentle herd of elephants walked silently across the plains. As day turned into night, the Milky Way, that vast river of stars, shone brilliantly above you. You were welcomed by a small tribe of humans who sat clustered around a campfire, sharing stories, laughing, and smiling. You felt incredibly safe and completely welcome in this vast, timeless land. Later, Nathaniel offered you some counsel, perhaps sensing your fatigue from the sudden shift back to the present. He led you to a hidden corner of the shop where a comfortable armchair sat nestled between tall, dark bookshelves. Nearby stood jars containing shimmering liquids and ancient scrolls, and scattered crystals sparkled under the dim light, adding to the shop's magical, hidden-away feeling. You realized that this was not merely an antique shop, it was a reservoir of history, where the owner, Merlin, occasionally made an appearance to sell bundles of hope and dreams in the form of specially prepared incense. As you prepared to leave Nathaniel's care and return to the wider village, he left you with a final thought, affirming that within this trove, strength and peace could always be discovered in the quiet moments of reflection. Elias and the Poetry of the Stars. Just around the corner from the bookshop of sleep, the astronomer's shop stood quietly, bathed in the soft light of the night sky. Tonight, the heavens were clear and the stars shone down, creating a perfect canvas for stargazing. Inside, row upon row of antique telescopes were visible, ranging from brass pocket models to grand, towering contraptions of polished wood. Elias, the elderly astronomer who ran the shop, moved through it with deep familiarity, his hand steady and sure, treating his instruments like old friends that offered him an eye into other, distant worlds. He had spent so many hours, days, and years doing this work that he could probably do it with his eyes closed, and sometimes, he did. Elias often repaired and meticulously cleaned his instruments, aware that these lenses were the very eyes through which the universe chose to reveal itself. He moved up a creaking staircase that spiraled up to the small observatory which crowned the shop. Here, the true magic of the astronomer's shop came alive under the night sky. A visitor was being guided to look through the largest telescope, and Elias settled in nearby. He spoke of profound cosmic matters. Did you ever wonder how small we are in relation to everything else around us? Elias asked, his voice soft but resonant. He spoke of new discoveries, such as exoplanets, which inevitably shift our understanding of the cosmos and our very existence within it. He explained that this universe is one magnificent organism, each part of it is connected. This deep realization provided the visitor, and you, listening in, with profound comfort and a new way to understand one's place in the grand scheme of things. Elias then picked up a well-worn, leather-bound book, titled Celestial Mechanics and the Poetry of the Stars, written long ago by Edwin Stargazer. This book, a favorite of his, bridged the gap between the purely scientific and the philosophical aspects of astronomy. He read softly to himself. In contemplating the heavens, one must not merely look to the mechanics but seek the poetry that exists within the cosmos. The stars tell us stories older than the mountains. To observe the stars is thus to look back in time, to witness the echo of the universe's fiery birth. Here lies the profound truth: in observing, we are not merely spectators but travelers in time itself. He reminded his listeners to consider the moon, our closest celestial neighbor, its surface scarred by the ceaseless dance of celestial forces, showing us a dynamic and ever-changing place. The craters, plains, and mountains of the moon, he noted, tell tales of cosmic impacts and geological upheavals. The celestial show above, Elias concluded, was a testament to the interconnectedness of all existence. The sweetest world and the river of renewal. Having absorbed the profound wisdom of the stars, you drifted further into the embrace of sleep, guided away from the physical village and into a purely dreamlike realm. You entered the cotton candy world, a place of innocence and joy, free to explore. Your guide, a soft and soothing voice, led you first to the meadow of reflection. This meadow, surrounded by gel-like substance that was soft and sweet underfoot, resembling the softest marshmallow. Here, visitors come to reflect, and any worries or anxieties that they carry are gently lifted away, leaving behind a deep sense of clarity and tranquility. The voice assured you that as you continued your journey through this wondrous world, the strength and peace you seek are always within you, waiting to be discovered in these quiet moments of reflection. Next, you followed the guiding voice toward the Orchard of Harmony. As you approached, the air became filled with a fragrant aroma of ripe, sweet fruits. The trees in this orchard were tall and majestic, their branches laden with fruits made of delicate translucent candy, each one glowing softly from within, casting a gentle, welcoming light. This orchard, the voice explained, is a place where visitors come to feel peace. Finally, the path meandered through a grove of candy cane trees, and soon, the deep, rich flow of running water reached your ears. You emerged from the grove to find yourself at the banks of a magnificent river, but not one made of water. Before you flowed a wide, majestic river of molten chocolate, its surface smooth and inviting. The river of renewal, announced the voice. Here, the waters are sweet, and the flow is a journey toward rejuvenation. This river symbolizes the continuous movement of life and the ever-present possibility of renewal and change. Along the riverbank, small boats made of hardened sugar waited for those eager to embark on a journey down this chocolatey stream. You stepped into one of the boats, and with a small, candy paddle in hand, you pushed off from the bank, the boat gliding effortlessly into the current of the chocolate river. Here, covered by a blanket, cozy and safe, you felt completely at peace, surrounded by the sweetest world you could ever imagine in the village of sleep. The voice spoke one last time, a gentle whisper, "Let the stars watch over you as you drift into sleep here under the sky of this magical world. You are safe. You are at peace. And you are surrounded by the sweetest world you could ever imagine." Chapter 4, The Weight of Empathy and the Covenants of Honor. The gold, the ruby, and the suffering of men. The river of molten chocolate flowed onward, carrying you in its gentle current, a sweet metaphor for the unending, tranquil process of renewal. But even in this sweetest world, the profound wisdom contained within the bookshop stories began to penetrate your awareness. The focus shifted from the external landscape of candy to the internal landscape of moral lessons. You heard the story of the happy prince, whose magnificent statue stood high above the indifferent city. The prince was entirely gilded over with thin leaves of fine gold, his eyes were made of two bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed conspicuously on his sword hilt. He was widely admired, described as being as beautiful as a weathercock, only or not quite so useful, remarked one of the town councillors. A little swallow, late on his way to Egypt, stopped and alighted just between the feet of the happy prince. He found a strange phenomenon. It was raining, yet there was no single cloud in the sky. Looking up, he saw that the prince's golden eyes were filled with tears, which were running down his beautiful golden cheeks. The prince explained his sorrow. Far away in a little street, in a poor house, a woman sat at a table. She was a seamstress, her face thin and her coarse red hands pricked by the needle, as she embroidered passion flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor. In a bed in the corner, her little boy lay ill with a fever, asking for oranges. His mother had nothing to give him but river water, so he was crying. The prince pleaded with the swallow, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt?" The prince was fastened to his pedestal and could not move. Though the swallow was waited for in Egypt, where his friends were talking to the large lotus flowers and would soon go to sleep in the tomb of the great king, he relented after seeing the prince's sadness. The swallow picked out the great ruby and flew away with it in his beak over the roofs of the town, past the cathedral tower where the white marble angels were sculptured. He laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble, then gently fanned the boy's forehead with his wings. The boy murmured that he felt cool and must be getting better, sinking into a delicious slumber. Later, the prince saw a young man in a garret, leaning over a desk covered with papers, trying to finish a play for the director of the theater. He was too cold and hungry to write anymore. The prince asked the swallow to pluck out one of his bright sapphires, brought from India 1,000 years ago, so the young man could sell it to the jeweler to buy food and firewood and finish his play. The swallow initially refused, afraid of leaving the prince blind, but obeyed the command. The young man, finding the beautiful sapphire lying on his withered violets, cried out, "I am beginning to be appreciated," and looked quite happy, believing the jewel was from a great admirer. When the prince was completely blind, having sacrificed his remaining eye for a poor little match girl who had spoiled her matches in the gutter, the swallow resolved to stay with him always, kissing the prince on the lips, for he loved him. The swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry while beggars sat at the gates, and he saw the white faces of starving children looking listlessly out of black streets. The prince told the little bird, "You tell me of marvelous things, but more marvelous than anything is the suffering of men and women. There is no mystery so great as misery." Having done his final good deed, the swallow knew he was going to die from the cold. He flew up to the prince's shoulder and, kissing him, fell down dead at his feet. At that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, and the leaden heart of the happy prince snapped right in two. The foolishness of the miller. The warm feeling evoked by the prince's sacrifice was quickly countered by another narrative that rose to the surface of your dreaming, the sad story of the devoted friend. It was the tale of little Hans, the honest and gentle gardener, and the wealthy miller. As long as the snow lasted, the miller used to say to his wife that when people are in trouble, they should be left alone and not bothered by visitors. The miller believed he was Hans's best friend and would always watch over him, seeing that he was not led into temptation. He constantly talked about friendship, asserting that lots of people act well, but very few people talk well, which shows that talking is the more difficult thing of the two, and much the finer thing also. As soon as spring came and the primroses began to open their pale yellow stars, the miller resolved to visit Hans, anticipating that Hans would be able to give him a large basket of primroses which would make him happy. The miller constantly took advantage of Hans's trusting nature. He asked Hans to mend his barn roof, claiming that flour was one thing and friendship was another, and the two should not be confused. Hans gladly gave the miller his plank of wood for the roof, pleased that the miller was going to give him his old wheelbarrow in return. The miller later chastised Hans for resting, calling him lazy and idle, saying he only spoke so plainly because he was his friend. Hans spent all his time working away for the miller, running long errands, helping at the mill, and was never able to look after his own flowers. He consoled himself by reflecting that the miller was his best friend and was going to give him his wheelbarrow, an act of pure generosity. One evening, on a wild and dreadful night, the wind blowing terribly, the miller appeared at Hans's door, asking Hans to go fetch the doctor because his little boy had fallen off a ladder and hurt himself. He justified the request by reminding Hans, "You know I am going to give you my wheelbarrow, and so it's only fair you should do something for me in return." Hans started off at once, running into the pitch-black night without the miller's lantern, which the miller refused to lend him, saying it was his new lantern and it would be a great loss if anything happened to it. The storm grew worse, and the rain fell in torrents. Little Hans lost his way, wandering off on the moor, a very dangerous place full of deep holes, and there poor little Hans was drowned. His body was found the next day and brought back to the cottage. The miller attended the funeral as the chief mourner. "As I was his best friend," said the miller, "it's only fair that I should have the best place." Afterwards, while seated at the inn, the miller complained that Hans's death was a great loss to him, adding, "Why, I had as good as giving him my wheelbarrow, and now I really don't know what to do with it. It's very much in my way at home." The water rat, hearing the tale, shouted, "Pooh," when he discovered that the story had a moral, having failed entirely to see its tragic lesson. The fir tree's misplaced glory. Moving away from the sharp sting of human cruelty, your dreamscape led you back toward the quieter contemplations of the natural world, infused with a similar sense of tragic blindness. You encountered the story of the fir tree. This charming fir tree, situated in a good spot in the forest where it could get sunshine and plenty of air, was so eager to grow up that it paid no attention to the warm sun or the fresh air. It trembled every year when the woodsman came to chop down some of the biggest trees, and the magnificent trees would topple to the ground with a groan and a crash. The young tree asked the stalk where the felled trees went, and the stalk replied that he had met magnificent mast trees on ships as he flew back from Egypt. The little fir tree didn't want to fly across the sea, but it wanted to be decorated. Its greatest wish was to be a Christmas tree. It finally reached the height of its ambition one Christmas Eve when it was brought into a parlor and adorned with candles, toys, and gold.